Hello there, and welcome to this third round review of the 2021 Rugby League World Cup. I'm your host, Super Saiyan Blue Lucario, so grab a cup of tea and join me as we dive into the final round of fixtures in the group stage. Firstly, Group A, England versus Greece. This ended up being a record victory in a World Cup for England, surpassing their victory over Russia in 2000. But it didn't necessarily start out that way. I mean, a brutal start to the game saw Greece cough up the ball pretty cheaply as they just could not make any ground, literally. And England did stroll in quite softly. They were making big yards of the ball in hand almost every time they had it. And this actually caused England some trouble as they began to overplay. They're looking to score for almost every touch of the ball. And while they were 10-0 up, they were also turning over possession a bit too cheaply and dropping the ball cold on breaks by just trying to overplay the moves. And they were giving Greece away into the game. They were giving them a foothold. And they found their feet and began to put some play together. They got a reward, actually, after the fullback Talcamo was found off a great pass from Jordan Meads out wide to slide over the line. And all of a sudden, it was 10-4. And we think, hang on, Greece had to play. But that was as good as it got. The message got out, and England began to play a lot more direct, with simple and effective rugby, coupled with the speed and power of the full-time athletes. It was just too much for Greece, who found themselves 40 points to 4 down at half-time, which after 20 minutes was only 10-4. And then at that point, such a scoreline seemed unlikely. But there was no let-up in the second half from England, who posted another 50 points. They almost cracked 100, but for a correct call from the video ref in the final play of the game, judging England to have knocked on. The only real downside for England was the injury to Victor Radley. Hopefully, he just went off as precaution. He's had an excellent tournament so far and will be crucial in the knockout stages. My man of the match of the game, though, was Andy Ackers. He had a superb game at dummy half. His passing distribution was excellent, and England thrived off the back of it. And he's certainly going to give a selection headache for Sean Wayne. He's a much improved performance from his France game. So it's a tough choice to make at dummy half for the quarterfinals, which now await England. Greece, however, their World Cup may be over, but their journey in World Rugby League has only just begun. I'm sure there is plenty more to come. They've certainly won a lot of fans in this tournament with their appearance and their valiant efforts in every single game. Next, Samoa versus France. Now, I expected a much closer game than what we got, but Samoa came to play, and boy, did they. A ferocious first 20 minutes in which they just battered the French all over the field. Big hit after big hit. Got with some clever hands and good pass choices. Samoa found themselves 16-0 up. The French at this point, you felt, were hanging on, and while their scramble defense was very good, Samoa just too strong. But it could have been so different. At only 6-0 down, France narrowly missed a try in the corner with Leguer being bundled in touch just before grounding the ball in the corner. And at that point, it could have really turned the game on its head. All the pressure had been on France at this point, and then their one chance up at the other end of the field to score. Could have seen some doubt creep into the Samoan minds, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be there. It did spark the French, though, and then a period of 10 minutes of sustained pressure on the Samoan line. You could see France start to build, but Samoa continually turned them away. Great commitments in defense, time and time again before the back of a 20-meter restart, bursting forward for a huge breakaway from the nightmarish left edge for Taylor May crossed for his second of 4 tries in this game. That was the breakthrough. That was where the game turned. And the game as a contest blew away at this point. The French just had no more answer. And further scores before half time, it was 28-0 break. It was more of the same in the second half as 2 quick tries were added to the total before France finally did get on the board after a deft kick wasn't dealt with and Fouad Yaha crossed over to bring them onto the score sheet at least. But Samoa did add further scores to complete the blowout. They punished the French in defense, and none more so than Junior Paolo, who absolutely snapped fullback Artem Morg in half with a brutal tackle. A fitting illustration of the night for France. Samoa now progress to the quarterfinals to face Tonga in an absolute blockbuster of a mouth-watering showdown, while France bow out again at the group stage. The French level is improving, but greater steps are going to be needed if they're going to actively challenge in 2025, as the Pacific Islanders have taken huge strides themselves and become genuine contenders. France face the real prospect of being left behind if their standard doesn't improve. The trickle down is happening. The youth is being developed at a good rate. It just needs that extra push to get France up to the level they need. Man of the match for me in this game was Anthony Milford. His kicking game and direction at halfback was brilliant. And he combined very well with Luai, especially down the left edge, which was absolutely unstoppable all night. Now, Group B, and starting with Australia versus Italy. This was a comfortable win for the Kangaroos, who never really got out of second gear in this one. I thought Italy might contain the score a little better, but the game followed a very similar pattern to the Australia-Scotland game. Fast, fluid movement from Australia, and Italy barely able to hang on defensively. The ruck speed alone just tearing holes for the Italians time and time again. James Tedesco had an outstanding game at fullback, which definitely helped us. Despite the dominance, it did appear that Nathan Cleary and Daly Cherry Evans were getting under each other's feet a bit. They weren't clicking at Haas, and not that they needed to, as individual brilliance was enough to put Italy away, but against better opposition, that kind of miscommunication could be the difference between world champions and not. Italy did get a deserved try and the biggest cheer of the night, but their World Cup ends on a very damp note. After the capitulation against Fiji, it just felt like they were a shell of the side who dismantled Scotland. Man of the match for me in this one was James Tedesco, who showed why he is considered by many the best fullback in rugby league today. Now, Fiji versus Scotland. This one was far more entertaining than I feared it might be with performances in the tournament so far. Scotland were under the cosh from minute one by relentless pressure from the Fijians, who raced into an early 12-0 lead. But the Scots just kept turning back wave after wave after wave of pressure, finally showing the pride that had been missing in both previous matches. Lachlan Walmsley claimed an interception and went 80 meters to bring them back into a game that they had no right to be in, really. It was all Fiji, and against the run of play, they were still in this. And all of a sudden, you started to believe that there might be a chance here. Scotland began to create chances of their own and build pressure, but a try 5 minutes from half-time, it seemed to settle the ship for Fiji as Raiwalua powered over. Before a second try for Scotland on the stroke of half-time, a neat little kick through from James Bell for Ben Helliwell to cross over, and it was really game on at that point. Both sides traded scores after the break in what was proving to be a very entertaining battle, before Corbin Sims settled the contest late on to finally end the Scottish resistance. But at least it's something for Scotland to build on. After a very disappointing campaign, they needed to show up with a performance, and it's a shame it was too little too late, but this has to be something to build for the future with the new crop of players that they've got. Fiji will now prepare for their quarterfinal with New Zealand, a repeat of the 2017 tournament. Can the Batty upset the odds again? My man of the match for this game is Viliami Kikau, who had a great game, hit solid lines even, and caused absolute mayhem down the left edge. I particularly enjoyed his little skirmishes with Walmsley as well in this one. Big man, but smaller, angry guy. It was just, yeah, just swat him away. Just swat him away. Next, Group C. Firstly, Lebanon against Jamaica. This one started like a house on fire. Jamaica won the ball back off a very first kickoff, and they worked the play very well to get close to the line and actually crashed over. But the video referee ruled against them, and scores remained level. From there, it was all downhill for the Reggae Warriors. They fell apart like a straw house in a strong wind. Lebanon were ruthless. They carved Jamaica up at every opportunity and ran in 7 tries before half time. Jamaica were just too soft and dishonest with their defense, and they never looked like stopping them. It was like running through paper almost at times. And Ashton Golding raised a very good point when interviewed at halftime. The players needed to take a long, hard look at themselves and think of what they want the world to think of them. They want to think about how they want the world to view them and remember them after this tournament is done. And they must have done, because it led to a much more spirited showing in the second half, a lot more steel in the tackles. And with Woodburn, Hall, and Rush combining pretty well, it looked like they might actually trouble the scoreboard. It came to fruition when Mo Agoro pounced on a loose pass and sprinted 60 meters to score in the corner before normal service resumed, with scores of Tassapale, Maroon, and Mansour for Lebanon. Jordan Andrade did add a second try for Jamaica, who certainly gave it a crack in the second half, and they will take a lot from this tournament. It's a steep learning curve, but with the quality sides that they faced, they'll definitely take a lot from it. Hopefully they kick on and really level up the game back home as they prepare to try and qualify again for 2025. Lebanon, with this victory, now meet Australia in the quarterfinals in what is going to be a very difficult challenge for them. And we'll see if they can rise to it like they tried to against New Zealand. Next, Ireland versus New Zealand. The Irish were without their 2 first-choice front rowers, and the lack of size certainly hurt against a powerful Kiwi side. However, every Irish player stepped up to the plate, and a much improved performance compared to a week ago against Lebanon. The Irish were actually first on the board after a penalty goal for a ball steal, but that lead was short-lived. Strong bursting carries in the middle of the field, and Jerome Hughes working his magic carved open the defence with ease to put New Zealand in front. But Ireland weren't to be undone, and they very nearly levelled things up after a great cutout ball from Keys found Lewis Senior in space with open field ahead, but it was pulled back for a forward pass, which I was in line with it. Personally, on a bad day, you'd call it a line ball, but referee saw it differently, and 50-50 calls just weren't going the Irish way. New Zealand did not need a second invitation. They punished them. The weight of possession on Ireland's line leading to scores for Rapana and Hiku. It looked like writing was on the wall at 16-2 before Lewis Senior then intercepted a cutout ball and raced away to score to bring the Irish right back into it. But another score for Hiku minutes later all but ended the contest. Massive hits were coming in from both sides as no one was taking prisoners. James Bentley putting in some really big shots, but the Kiwis answered in kind, with a rather controversial moment as Jared Warrior-Hargreaves landed a direct shoulder to the head of Irish debutant O'Kane. That in a league match, either in Super League or NRL, would have been a certain red card. This one was only given as a yellow, and while O'Kane failed his head injury assessment, so his debut was cut completely short. But even down to 12, New Zealand were dominant. After the back of a poor fast find the floor, New Zealand managed to score again before the break, and they looked to have the game wrapped up. Ireland kept pushing in the second half, but tired defence saw the Kiwis carve them open again. Fisher Harris scoring a soft try from very lax defending. But there was one more moment for Ireland to cheer for, as again scored through Lewis Senior, who chased a long kick and forced Rapana to lose possession, pouncing on the ball to get a second score of the night. Ireland's World Cup journey does end here, though, and it's a tale of what could have been. Had they not lost their heads against Lebanon, they might have been able to give New Zealand a stronger game had their pack not lost that size. But New Zealand, they now have a chance of revenge against Fiji, who eliminated them in 2017. Man of the match for this one was Jerome Hughes. He was unplayable all night and tormented Ireland in absolutely everything he did. Finally, Group D. First, Tonga versus the Cook Islands. With a quarter-final spot on the line, I expected a fierce and close game. What we got was an embarrassment. Tonga annihilated the Cooks, who were just never in the contest. With Taumalolo back from suspension, Tonga looked an entirely different side, an entirely different animal. The pace, the power, the skill, and precision to their play, which was just frankly missing in the previous rounds. Normally, the middle is the Cooks' strongest element, but it was just non existent. They could not contain the Tongan pack, who continually were making 20 meters per carry and were carving them open with ease. They running in a 50-0 lead at half time. The second half didn't get any better. Will Penasini added 2 more tries to take his personal tally to 4. Tessie Niu, Toi Loa here, Daniel Tupu all getting on the act. At 80-0, Cooks finally had a look in at the line, and with some good hands sent Stephen Masters in at the corner. Penasini and Amone both added scores to add to the embarrassment. From the restart, it looked like Tonga would go again, shipping the ball wide immediately from kickoff. But this was easily intercepted by halfback Takarangi, who offloaded to Tinarau Arona under the sticks, who also converted his own try on his final ever game. So there was a heartwarming moment at the end, but the Cooks just... It was a poor end to the tournament for them. And they had a chance at the quarterfinals, and it was snuffed out in mere moments. Man of the match of this game, Jason Taumalolo. With him in the side, Tonga are a different beast. They look every bit the side capable of doing big things in the tournament. The difference in their play was just night and day. And now we have Tonga versus Samoa in the quarterfinals to enjoy. And I promise you, this war between those two sides is not one to be missed. The last game of the group stage saw Papua New Guinea take on Wales. The rain was atrocious here, and it really did show in the game. There was a lot of drop ball. It was all about who could handle the conditions better. The Commonwealth started strongly, and an early score from Kyle Lambert and a powerful score through some very soft defense doubled the lead with only 10 minutes gone. Wales did start to build into the game and created a little bit of pressure, but their execution on the kicks was letting them down again and again. Kyle Evans did narrowly miss out on a score for himself. He was unable to hold the ball over the line, but then straight from the 20-meter restart, the Commonwealth went the length of the field to score again, and this just ended it as a contest. Another score from a crash ball extended the lead to 24-0 before Wales had an opportunity just before the break. But again, execution letting them down, overplaying the kicks to the in-goal area. The second half broke down. The conditions began to play their part. There was a lot of mistakes, a lot of drop ball, but by now, the result was already certain. A late try off a truly cruel bounce wrapped up the win for the Commonwealth, 36-0. Now, quarterfinals await. So what do these results mean? Well, from Group A, England and Samoa qualify in positions 1 and 2, with France and Greece bowing out. In Group B, Australia and Fiji qualify in first and second place, with Scotland and Italy bowing out. In Group C, New Zealand and Lebanon qualify, with us saying goodbye to Ireland and Jamaica. And in Group D, Tonga and Papua New Guinea qualifying over Wales and the Cook Islands. All 8 of these quarterfinalists have guaranteed qualification to 2025 World Cup. The other 8 will have to qualify through their various qualifying tournaments, which fixtures will start to be announced, hopefully over the next few months of the format of what it's going to take. But we're going to have a look at the quarterfinals. Now, 7 of the 8 teams that I predicted would be there are there. And all the matches are pretty much in line with what I thought. We have England taking on Papua New Guinea in a quarterfinal on Saturday. Based on England's form against Samoa, should be a very strong bet for England to go through. But Papua New Guinea are showing their stuff. They're really here to play and show that they can mess around with the big boys too. I really like the look of their spine right now. Their halves are combining very well, and they've got a strong pack. They always do, and they'll never, ever stop. England have to be on their game to make sure of this win, and hopefully with all of the players available and picking that strongest 17, England should be able to do the job, but it won't be an easy game for certain. Second game, we have Samoa against Tonga, which a position was in doubt for some time. One, Papua New Guinea should have beaten Tonga in that first game. Meanwhile, Samoa, their qualification was really at stake after their capitulation against England in round one, but they've really come on strong since then. And now I believe we're going to get the game that I initially predicted. Both teams firing on full cylinders. They seem to have found their form, each of them, after their last fixtures. And I'm very, very excited for this one on Sunday. It's going to be a brutal game. If there's only one quarterfinal you watch, it has to be that one. The next one, Australia will play Lebanon. I had Ireland to qualify. In my prediction, I'm not going to change the scoreline here. I do think it will be an Australia win. I think we're going to keep that scoreline prediction there. And I think it'll probably play out a lot like the New Zealand-Lebanon game did. Like, Lebanon will come out the traps flying, but Australia's superior skill and quality overall will pull away and away. And so I'm still going to leave that one there. I do think Australia will go through in that one. But that is the Friday night quarterfinal there. So keep an eye on that one. Before we have Fiji against New Zealand in a repeat of the 2017 quarterfinal. I don't think Fiji are as strong as they were in 2017, and their performances haven't quite convinced me of yet. They weren't necessarily great against Australia in that first game. They were brilliant against Italy. Don't get me wrong, they were brilliant against Italy. But then against Scotland, they seemed to lack that killer edge. Yes, they got the job done, but they should have put Scotland away a lot easier than they did. They made it far too hard for themselves, and they really need to click in this game. They need everything to go right against the New Zealand side, who are also looking a little disjointed, but haven't really faced that bigger challenge just yet in their games. This certainly will be a test for the Kiwis, and we'll certainly see a bit more about them and whether or not they are likely to go through in this one. So we're now at the knockout stages. Of the teams who have qualified for the knockouts, who do you think is going to win? How do you think the quarterfinals are going to go? Let me know down in the comments section which quarterfinal you're looking forward to the most this weekend. And thank you all for watching. I've been your host, Super Saiyan Blue Lucario. And until next time, it's time for me to have a cup of tea.